Hey guys, hi, welcome back once again. My name is Vaishali, and having learned quite a few things from, through, and from within human interactions, and having pursued and completed my master's in business administration and in clinical psychology, and having had the chance to work in the capacity of a counselor and a therapist for a few years now, I today wish to talk about actively de-stressing ourselves. So, not distressing ourselves, but de-stressing ourselves. Now, knowingly or unknowingly, given the environment that we live in, given the environment and the culture that surrounds us, given the people that we interact with, along with our own internal thought processes, which are mostly subconscious and unconscious, and to some degree a bit conscious as well. We all experience some kind of a stress. Now, of course, that stress can be acute, or that stress can also be chronic as well. Stresses that are experienced due to some dire emergency situations, an accident, somebody's death, a rape, a physical abuse, a war that causes enormous amounts of stress, or the kind of stressors that we accumulate slowly, very gradually over the period of time. And that starts to impact not just our mental, our emotional health, but even our physical health. And I'd like to mention over here that many a time, since we are so adaptable as creatures, as human beings, adaptation to those kind of gradually built up stressors to some degree might be helpful, but many a times we are unaware, we are not aware when those adaptations turn maladaptive. When that kind of an extreme tolerance can develop into something that becomes intolerable. So, just taking a very small practical example over here. Say, supposedly, if I have not rested well for a day or two, my mood naturally gets impacted. I might not be in the right mood for the next few hours or for the next few days because the body has not had a chance to rest and repair. Because repair in the body only happens when we are well rested, or plus and we intentionally de-stress ourselves. Otherwise, some of us can start to experience headaches, some kind of irritability in the eye or even eye pains. Some people start to experience muscle pains or muscle spasms. Some people start to feel stiffness and tightness on their necks. Some people start to feel that their shoulders have become a little too tight or a little too heavy. Some people might start to experience backaches. Some people might experience problems with regards to constipation, or some people might experience excessive of bowel movements. Some people can experience a lot of acidity, whereas others can experience a lot of dehydration in the body because rest and repair has not taken place, and thereby distressing has not taken place as well. And since our body stores everything, whether we have paid attention to it or not, and not just the foods and the liquids and the acids that it stores, but even the emotion that it stores that has not been paid attention to, starts accumulating as stress over a period of time, that at some point in time, that accumulated stress becomes distress, becomes distressing, which is why on a regular basis, if not on an everyday basis, it's necessary, it's important to de-stress our body, our neuromuscular system. So, firstly, since we are social creatures and we are constantly interacting, or at least most of us are constantly interacting with others, with our surroundings, with our environment, with our culture, with people within the family and outside of the family. We are getting bombarded with tons of information. Along with the information, tons of information that is already present in our subconscious. So imagine the kind of churning our brain and our nervous system is doing in order to process all of that. And 97% of the times, we are not even aware of 97% of what is already present within the subconscious and 97% of what floods us, of what floods our neuromuscular system, which is our body. And many of us, or almost all of us, are not processing 97% of that information, which is getting piled up. And thereby imagine the kind of load that this system is carrying, that this system is weighed down upon. So, firstly, having the right support system, having a support system that has our back, wherein we feel completely heard, wherein we feel completely seen, wherein we feel understood, wherein we are able to present the best and the worst parts of ourselves without feeling judged by somebody else, without feeling shamed or attacked. Because as humans, we do co-regulate each other. Now, of course, it's important to understand here, it's important to acknowledge here that having that kind of a support system, maybe by one person or maybe by a couple of person or 3 or 4 people, does not necessarily mean that there will be no disagreements at some point in time or the other. But if we are able to even express our disagreements and able to express as to why do we have those disagreements, while we feel safe, is having a support system that helps us be well regulated, at least on most days. And these are the people, at least in my understanding, are the people that create our inner circle. These are also the people who have compassion for us, but would also be the truth tellers in our lives, will also be the people who will be able to hold us accountable for our own bullshits in life without shaming us. So having that right support system is very important for co-regulation of our body, of our neuromuscular system. Second, a practice that I take up quite frequently is journaling. Now, journaling is an art of writing all of our experiences, all of our thoughts, all of our feelings, all of our interactions in a personal diary, wherein all of the good, bad, the ugly, the gods and the devils all come in together. So in a way, in my diary, I'm not holding back anything. I am being completely expressive in exactly the way as I'm feeling and thinking at that point in time. So I'm able to experience my whole self, the good, the bad, and the ugly. I'm also able to accept the whole of myself when I'm able to express myself without holding myself back. I am expressing my whole truth without lying, without camouflaging. And many of us, I believe, would already know that lying does more damage to our body than 2 sleepless nights. Next, journaling in hindsight also helps me reflect on my own journey with regards to the changes that I have seen in keeping with the decisions that I make, in keeping with the choices that I make, and journey with regards to also seeing the patterns that I still probably continue, either consciously or unconsciously, either knowingly or unknowingly. Journaling also helps me develop metacognition, wherein after a period of time, I'm able to reflect on my own thinking. I'm able to think about my own thinking, to be able to see it more clearly. And since 97% of the times we operate from the subconscious, quite likely 97% of those thoughts, 97% of those beliefs, or at least on the lower side, at least 80% of those thoughts and 80% of those beliefs have been put in by others, which have now become my own because they've settled in my head, inside of my skull, and in my nervous system. And to some degree, that might have been helpful, and to some degree, that might have been pretty unhelpful as well. And when that's unhelpful, over a period of time, quite naturally, it builds into cumulative stress, leading to all kinds of distress and distress related diseases, which quite naturally shows up in the body, which is where now the body works come in. Now, in order to de-stress the body, there are a few things we can include in our regular practices. One of them is getting regular, good quality sleep. Helps in repair and overhauling of the complete system within the body, or the systems that operate within this body. Right from the digestive system to the reproductive system to the breathing system and every other kind of system gets rehauled, gets repaired at least to some degree or quite a large degree. Next, quite naturally, is nourishing our body well with literal food and water. And over here, I must say that though I do generally eat pretty healthy, I'm also very gradually learning, or at least I need to remind myself constantly to slow down while I'm eating, to at least chew every single bite at least 20 to 25 times before I swallow it in, so that it does not sit heavy on the entire digestive tract, on the entire digestive system, so that I'm not unnecessarily overloading it, over pressurizing it. Now, that is a process I still have to remind myself of. That is a process that I'm still continuing to learn. Drinking water, one sip at a time, enough water, one sip at a time, while sitting and not while standing up or moving. That is also something that I constantly need to remind myself of. Next, meditation. Now, that is also something that I regularly do, if not on an everyday basis. That is just sitting with myself, closing my eyes and closing my ears with cotton balls, and at times even tying a scarf around my eyes and just sitting for 15 to 20 minutes, or at times even half an hour. In the beginning, even 15 to 20 minutes can seem a lot, but if we can even start with 5 to 10 minutes twice a day and continue it regularly, it enables us to sit with our own selves. It enables us get comfortable with the silence. It enables us to even observe our own thoughts and probably even sense certain emotions as feelings in our bodies, which is where we are able to have a second person's perspective with our own selves as we observe our own selves in that moment, which I personally will also call it as psychosomatic awareness. Now, the other method that I'd also use, if not on a daily basis, quite regularly, to de-stress my body and thereby all of my senses, my neuromuscular system, would be through the practice of Brahmari. Now, Brahmari is a form of breathing where one is required to close the ears, the eyes, and the nose slightly, if one wishes to do so, and then create a humming sound. Now, this kind of a breathing, as the researchers tell us today, not only add to the gray matter in the prefrontal cortex of our brains which is the executive functioning part of the brain, wherein at least, or from which at least, we are able to take some mature decisions, some wise decisions at least to a large degree, is by expanding the gray matter in the prefrontal cortex that is quite likely only present in the humans. Now, when we do that, and when that particular region gets activated, the reactive part of the brain slows down quite a bit. It decelerates, and thereby we are able to respond better rather than react most of the times. And it's also said, or at least the researchers are saying, that when this part of the brain, the neocortex, is optimally functioning, it functions in a more focused manner as well. Which, in a way, I personally think is quite amazing that the brain as a whole, or brain on a whole, and thereby the nervous system, is not just optimally focused, but is also much more calmer, is not hyperactive, is not hypervigilant, is not over functioning. And this is how I do my Brahmari, or this practice of breathing. So I would take both my hands, close my ears, not very tightly, but enough to not be able to hear too many sounds. I would very gently close my eyes, very, very gently, very softly, just press my nostrils a little bit and put the other fingers like this. Now, these fingers do not touch here, and that is why I keep them elevated. Now, the idea is to inhale and to kind of make a humming sound and then release the breath. So it looks something like this. Now, for me over here, it's especially important that I'm either sitting down on the ground, on the floor, or even if I'm not sitting down on the floor, then my bare feet is placed flat on the floor. For that also helps me ground my neuromuscular system, my body. The other fun activity to de-stress our body and to remove as many stressors from the body as possible, be it through air pollution, be it through noise pollution, be it through sound pollution, be it through any form of interaction, or be it through our own subconscious, is just by shaking our bodies, exactly like how animals do, which we can extend from 15 minutes to 20 minutes to 30 minutes to 45 minutes. We can include some poses of yoga as well. Now, shaking can also be done through dance, through games and plays. The other activity that we can do on a daily basis to de stress ourselves is humming, is just humming any song, is just humming any sound that we wish to hum. And so when we are humming, we are actually regulating our vagus nerve, the longest nerve in the body. To regulate ourselves better, to de stress ourselves. So it's not singing, but it's humming. And it can go from the sound of Om, wherein we say, or it can be humming any song. Mm-hmm. 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 Now, over here, I was recording it for a video. But when we are not doing that, when we are not clued in on that or glued in on that, and when we are just doing it for ourselves, we'll realize that there are no thoughts that are going through our heads, that are going through our minds. There are no feelings or barely any feelings. Or maybe the feelings related to that particular song that we are able to sense. But beyond that, the cycle of thoughts just disappear. And we are able to give our nervous system, a brain, our muscular system, a bit of a breather, a bit of a pause, a bit of a rest time before bringing it online again. Now, there's this other mat that I have with me, and it's quite a pricky mat. It's quite a hard mat that I have. I think it's called as reflexology mat or something like that. And it works on the principles of acupressure. So, what essentially needs to happen here is that I would be required to stand and walk on this mat while it presses on some areas of the foot or all over the foot, rather my feet, to be able to release some kind of a pressure from various organs, which in reflexology or the science of reflexology are connected to my feet. And personally, what I have noticed is that to a large degree, after stepping on that mat for 5 minutes and walking on that mat for 5 minutes, either barefoot or wearing socks or placing some kind of a plain cloth, a thin plain cloth on that, I start to feel some kind of a tingling sensation, some kind of a sensation on my feet, on my legs. And there are some people who've even shared with me that they are able to feel some kind of sensations on their back and even on their skulls, in their brains. Now, I haven't felt that so far, but I've definitely felt it on my legs. So here's how it looks like. So I place it like so, and then I step on it, and it pricks a bit. Like at times it pricks a lot, but at times it's bearable enough. It's not horrible. It's bad. It's uncomfortable. It's slightly painful, but bearably painful. And the idea is to walk on this like so. Now there's a little mound on the center. So we've even got to step on this mound on the center so as to be able to feel the pressure in the center of our foot. Now we step aside and place the other foot, and it's painful, but the idea is to de-stress ourselves. So a little bit of pain, a slight pain, temporary pain, slight discomfort as of now. If that can reduce chronic stressors or diseases in the longer run, in the long term, I think 2 to 3 to 5 minutes of pain is worth the trouble. And I can start to feel the tingling sensation on the top of my feet. I can even slightly feel it on my shins. And I can start to feel the heat rising up to my thighs and up to my shins and onto my calves as well. Now, there are some people who can go really hard with it, like they can really walk fast. I have not yet reached that place, but maybe someday. And we step out. And then we see whatever sensations we feel in our body. And I can feel a lot of release, a lot of lightness on this part of my body, on both the legs. Next, engaging in any kind of a hobby, be it painting, be it writing, be it music, be it swimming, be it playing chess, be it gardening, be it knitting, all helps us in de-stressing ourselves. So it's a necessity to develop, to curate a hobby. So that helps bring a pause into the system that's constantly running, that's constantly overworking. And that kind of a pause gives it some intentional rest to recover. Hobbies also develop mindfulness. Now, there's another activity called as body tapping, which, if taken up very regularly, or if possible on a daily basis, actually helps us in de-stressing ourselves, in feeling lighter. And it also is beneficial in detoxing our lymphatic system. And at the same time, it helps in better blood regulation. And this can be done for at least 10 to 15 minutes, whether once a day or twice a day. If it is possible once a day, I would personally suggest that we do it after we come back from our workplace, after we return back home. And so it looks something like this. So we stand with our feet shoulder width apart. Very softly we bend our knees and we move like this. We pulse like this. And then from the center, leaving our wrists very loose, wherein they are not in control, they are not like this, wherein they are very loose, we start tapping our central part. And we let it be so loose that it starts tapping to the innermost parts of us. So we do this for a minute, a count of 60. We should be actually able to feel it within the insides of our bodies. If we do it like this, then it's in a very controlled manner, and the effect of it might not be as great as it needs to be, as it can be. So we go like this for the count of 60, and after this, we open our palms. I've opened up my left palm, and then we take our hands up to our shoulders, and with very loose wrists, we start tapping our shoulders, and then we kind of come down. You need not be gentle here, because we are trying to do the lymphatic drainage. We are also trying to de-stress ourselves, and we are trying to improve our blood circulation as well. So we do this, then we flip our hand over, and we do the same in the other order. We move back to the shoulders. We tap here for a count of 10, and then pointing our thumb upwards towards the ceiling, we kind of bring our hand down once again. While doing this, we are constantly moving as in our knees don't stop. It's a very gentle movement. And then from the pinky finger, we start to tap onto this side of the hand. Near the armpits, we pat here, we tap here 10 times. We'll find most of our lymph nodes over here, or a large chunk of our lymph nodes here. So we do that to release them, to unknot them. And then we come over here onto the sides, gradually getting it back to the center again. Now we do the same with our other hand, onto our other hand as well. So we take the hand up, and then we start to come down. This is how we do it. Turn the hand around and start tapping here with your wrists loose. Not like this, but leaving them loose. If you notice that you're sweating, it's a very good sign. It's a lovely sign. Now pointing your thumb upwards towards the ceiling, we come down again. Now from the pinky, we start to move back towards the armpit. 10 times over here, and then we go down. Now we'll bend a little forward and then we start tapping here. We start tapping our lower back, our mid back. We start going down our legs. From the back side, we bend a bit and start tapping the back of our thighs. And we start going down. We come down to our ankles and then we move in the front. We tap the front of our foot, the ankles, the front side of the ankle, and then we start moving up our shins, our knees, our thighs, the upper part of our thighs. Please remember, you don't have to be gentle over here as you tap. I am sweating a lot, and that's a lovely sign. Some stressors in my body are being released in the form of sweat. Now I go on to the side. The side of the thighs, the side of the knees, the side of the shins and the calves. And I tap onto my ankles. Then I come onto the inner side of my legs, tapping the ankles. Gradually moving up the calves, the inner side of the calves of the legs, the inner side of the knees, the inner side of my thighs, back up. I can even start tapping onto my chest. And then bring it back to the center. Where you can tap for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And we stop. And many of us will start to feel some kind of sensations in our body. I can feel it in my arms up till here. I can feel it a little over here as well, around my cheeks. I can feel something onto the sides of my body and on my legs, which means that the blood circulation is happening. The lymphatic drainage is beginning to happen. Now, there are a few other things that can also be done to de-stress ourselves quite intentionally. And one of them is using our sense of smell. Now, personally for me, these are a few of my favorite perfumes. One is Halloween, having the fragrance of lavender. And personally for me, it's a very calming, it's a very soothing fragrance. It just eases out all of my senses. So if I just spray a bit of this, and if I just inhale this, it suddenly starts to soothe and cool down and calm down my nervous system. I just begin to feel a lot at ease with myself and with my surroundings. And there's another fragrance, Calvin Klein, which my dad used to use, out of the few that he used to use, which kind of helps me feel safe and secure. Through the perfumes that he used to wear and the way he used to smell, makes my body, makes my nervous system feel safe and secure. And since safety is our first need, both on the physical and on the psychological level, it is very important to find fragrances that can help us feel safe and secure, and thereby, after which, bring a sense of groundedness tranquility, calmness, and peace, and thereby ease within our own selves and with our surroundings as well. Now, if we need to boost up our mood, if we need to elevate our mood, we can use some other fragrances, some citrusy fragrances to be able to do that. And that, of course, will vary from one person to the other. Now, there's another gadget which I have, which is called as the Theragun. It looks something like this. And there are tons of variations of these available online. And it comes with various attachments like these, which can be used to regulate and de-stress our neuromuscular system. Now, just to demonstrate this, I'd like to use this particular socket. Now, of course, this needs to be charged. And in order to de-stress my cells, in order to de-stress or remove the stress from my muscles and to a degree from my nervous system, I'd use it like so. So I switch this on, and if I need to remove the stress from my neck, I kind of go like this and feel the sensations all over my head, all over my neck, all over my face, and to some degree, even my back. And it might sound a little hard, but trust me, it's not. It's doing its job very well. Now, as you can see, there's a ripple effect on this area. And we stop. Now, this can be used all over the body. And why did I use it on my face? Because firstly, it can be. And secondly, many a times we fail to realize that many times we are clenching our jaws. We are tightening our teeth. When we feel some kind of a discomfort, when we feel irritated, when we feel even confused, when we feel angered. And in order to relax even those muscles or those areas, it's important to do this as well, which can also happen through facial massages, through body massages, through therapeutic massages. Now, there's one more practice, one of my favorite ones, that we can include in our daily routines, or at least on a regular basis, to be able to de-stress our system, to be able to de-stress our bodies, to be able to feel a little calmer or a lot calmer and a little more grounded. And this was taught to me by my own daughter, wherein we have to lie down on the floor and place our legs at a 90-degree angle from our knees, resting onto some surface, a bed, a sofa, a chair, or whatsoever that we want for ourselves. And then just open our palms up. Keep looking straight at the ceiling without letting our eyes wander. And just allow ourselves to rest for 20 to 30 minutes in that position. We'll gradually begin to notice that we are breathing a lot more deeply, that we are breathing like infants when we first came into this world, through our bellies, through our tummy. We are taking a whole breath in, which naturally calms our systems down. Next, we'll also notice that our thoughts are no longer crowding our head, are no longer overwhelming our system. Some people feel that like a stack of books or a stack of papers that were placed on their head have just started to fall off, have just started to drop off after a few seconds or a couple of minutes. While some others feel that their brain has completely gone blank. While some others feel that some kind of a smoke is getting released from their brains, from their heads, and there's a lot of lightness in the brain and in the neck region. So, after we've done that for 20 to 30 minutes, when we return back home in a quiet place, in an undisturbed place, we need to gradually scoot ourselves out, roll onto one side, preferably the left side, lie there for 30 seconds or so, and then very gently and gradually sit down, sit up. And many of us would also notice that our head feels light and heavy at the same time, which is where we need to place our face, our head onto our palms and just sit like this, resting our palms, resting our hands on our legs to be able to give it some kind of a support. And after a couple of minutes, we can start to sit up straight, breathe in for a few minutes, and then very slowly get up. We'll notice that our nervous system has reset itself, has de-stressed itself. Now, the idea to open up our palms and open up our hands is essentially to tell our subconscious, to tell our body, to tell our nervous system, to tell our sympathetic nervous system that it's been able to open its arms because it feels safe in its environment, because it feels safe in itself, wherein it doesn't have to then protect itself, to then guard itself, to close itself off. And it's quite a physical thing to do, to be able to tell our subconscious, to be able to give that message to our subconscious very directly. And if this practice can be included on a day-to-day basis, after a few days and after a few months, we will begin to notice that we have started to respond a lot better after taking a bit of a pause, after being able to reset ourselves. The last one that I can think of with regards to de-stressing ourselves is by being able to gently pull our ears, place our fingers very gently inside our ears, putting the fingers in a downward position, and then very gently pulling our ears. It doesn't have to be hard, and then we can gradually start pinching our ears. The way it's done, the way it's shown when somebody is getting a face massage or a head massage done. Now, these are a few of the steps through which we can actively, rather proactively, and very intentionally start to de-stress our system, start to de-stress ourselves, so that we are able to respond better rather than react better. For reaction comes naturally to us, for reaction comes naturally to most organisms or all organisms, because reactivity is inbuilt to protect ourselves, to defend ourselves. We react as if everything's an emergency, where most things in life are not an emergency. And it helps us discern. This pause helps us discern when reactivity is required and when response is required. And I'll be attaching as many links as I can possibly find on other YouTube videos with regards to these practices and many more, which can enable us, which can help us, which can empower us to actively de-stress ourselves so that we don't vomit out our stressors onto others, wherein many a times it may not actually be needed. So let's take up these practices on a regular basis, if not a daily basis, to feel more at ease with ourselves, to feel more regulated within our own bodies and at ease with others as well. Let's try and do those things, and I will see you once again the next week. Till then, stay tuned in. And guys, if you do like the contextual content of these videos, please do like, share, and subscribe.